Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, one half a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second.
Please, everybody. I was told to make this funnier. Actually, I wasn't told to. I was listening to my show, and I figured, you gotta be as entertaining as possible. So, can y'all hear me? Okay? No, that's okay. I can't hear you either. Well, there you go. First joke of the day. I don't want to say there's a lot to talk about, because that's what everybody says. There's always something to talk about, and the problem is trying to do it in a way that is interesting to everybody, but specifically to diabetics and people that are concerned about their health. We will talk about that, but it always bleeds over into other things. You talk about something, it goes down another rabbit trail, and before you know it, you can cover every subject. But I do try to reel it in and keep it to the subject at hand, because I know there are people that know a family member that just got diabetes. They themselves got diabetes, and they just want all the information they can get. And I'm one avenue out of many that can provide a commonsensical answers to a lot of questions. And just if I cover the stuff that I know that troubled me. I talked to a diabetic this weekend that was on the pump, and it happens to be a family member. We were at a function, and it was kind of interesting. She pulled her pump out, and she's probably 13 years old. And she was kind of talking to me about the problems, the stuff that she struggled. She still has to check her blood on a regular schedule. But the function we were at is interesting because, well, let me back up. Is everybody talks about? Well, no, let me not back up. Let me just go forward. And everybody, no, because I'm backing up again. Let me push it in gear, grind it. There were cupcakes at both the functions we were at. There were cupcakes and cakes and gumballs, and just go down the list, because one was a wedding reception, and the other function was a barbecue the next day / Mother's Day, even though it was on Saturday. So everybody's having a good time, and there's food everywhere. How many people there were concerned about having sugar-free this, or there's diabetics, better not have as much sugar out, we should have alternative, other than the fruit, or not the fruit, because even fruit's bad for high blood sugar. There were vegetable plates, but I think that's just there because people think they need to do that for health reasons. But in any event, I'd never heard a diabetic complain about it. And like I said in the other episode, was diabetics tend to be tougher, and I love that. It's because we're like, hey, from a young age, in a lot of cases, you do this or you die. So you learn, or at least type 1 diabetics typically are known for learning how to make adult decisions at a really young age. It stems from, if you take this, you could die, and not die in 4 months or 4 years. I mean, literally, you could have a big problem, and your blood sugar can get so high, and you go into a coma, and blah blah blah. So So anyway, I'm always reminded of that. Oh, like I send my kids to school, they can't have peanuts, and it just drives me nuts. I'm thinking, well, when I was going to school, nobody cared about whatever I had, But now all of a sudden there's peanut allergies, and it's like, well, if you have peanuts, just don't eat them. Just stay away from it. Like, well, what if there is an accident? They accidentally have peanuts, and sure, that is a problem, but the I think the level of allergies too, not everybody's going to die. Like, I'm allergic to a lot of different things. I think I'm allergic to peanuts too, because if I eat a lot of walnuts, my tongue will break out in rashes. So technically, I could jump on the bandwagon too, but I think you tend to see a lot of people do it just because they like to grandstand, typically. And again, I'm not saying one disease against another, against allergic reaction. I'm just saying you will be better off in whatever you do if you fight the urge to indulge in whatever is bad for you, just because you're not supposed to do it, versus, okay, I don't want it to be there. Because if it's there, oh my gosh, I'm not going to know what to do. There's no automatic response. And it's funny, in the news, I just heard that the Penn State, one of the sororities, they're being sued, or somebody's being sued, probably the school, whoever's got money, because the kid, and I don't know all the details. I was just watching on Good Morning America, and the kid overdosed or had blood alcohol poison, passed out, and I think this is the one where they didn't do anything and he died. But that's not the point. I mean, it's a tragic thing. If my son died like that, it'd be like getting your heart ripped out. But the point is, when the parents are now telling the school that they should have done something about it, about the alcohol. And for starters, I believe it was already illegal to have alcohol. That's where the problem stems from, is them trying to cover it up, them having alcohol. But I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Your kid, you couldn't keep your kid from having alcohol. You couldn't convince them. So how the hell is a school full of strangers' kids supposed to prevent these kids from having alcohol? When does the personal responsibility of how a child is raised, when does that rubber hit the road? And it doesn't, so you got to blame somebody else. But I'm thinking, you got to pick a side, because on one hand, we're saying, okay, school, do this, do that. But it's the same group of people that when the school starts doing stuff, they say, hey man, get out of my kid's life. You can't have it both ways, and if you want the school to be the parent, then let them be the parent. And don't sue them when you feel like they're not being the kind of parent you want them to be. You understand? What I'm saying is, it's okay. You give people free reign to put pressure on kids to turn them into diamonds. But the second they're not allowed to put pressure on them, guess what? You're just going to be a lump of coal. Same with that's raising my kids. If my kids feel like they could go complain to grandma about how I'm raising them, and if my grandma lends a sympathetic ear, then whatever I'm doing isn't going to have his effect, because I can't put pressure on them because they're relieving it through another family member. That's why, hopefully everybody has family members that back them up and don't undermine you. But anyway, it's you have the school that is now faced with a problem, and it stems from I think nobody wanting to blame kids, and I don't know about this case. I mean, of course I haven't heard everything, but it shines light on a problem that is more general. And it just goes back to, if you have personal responsibility, you make the right decision no matter what, these things tend not to happen as much. Am I saying that they're never going to happen? Of course not. But we live in a time where there's a lot of decisions to be made, and as parents, we need to make sure our kids are making the best decision possible, because ultimately it can end up in death. So it's just one of those things to where I think having diabetes isn't, you have to look at the silver lining, and that's one of the things is we're going to go around and hopefully do things that are better for us and healthy for us, just because we were raised out of necessity to do that. The other thing is I read a quick article about Trump that he was not covering. Well, basically, he just told people that you're fat. It's not my problem. it's your fault. And at least, of course, in today's media, that's how it's going to get covered. And when I read the article, they're talking about type 2 diabetics. And, of course, a lot of that is due to, overeating. Pretty much anybody that is obese eventually will get type 2 diabetes, I believe. And so he's like, hey, if we got to cover it, it's not fair because it's something that could have been prevented. And, this is one of those things to where you already have your mind made up before the article was even read. And it's easy just to look at all the negatives, but I try to look at everything as neutral as possible. And I think forget how somebody says something. We have to look at what, kind of get past that and say, okay, now what are we really talking about? The nuts and bolts and the math. And I think one is, if you help type 2 diabetics, you are helping type 1, the people that tend to just get it because of their body just stops working, not because of habits. But I'm sure they overlap each other. So that's if the funding was everything. But in my opinion, I don't think I think the funding isn't the problem. I think diabetes gets plenty of money. I think the problem is everything is so damn expensive in the government that nobody could afford to cover anything or to research anything. And the FDA has their issues with taking 2 lifetimes to try to save somebody's lifetime. And I think it's England that has. I remember like 10 years ago they're talking about inserting a continuous glucose monitor or having it affixed to you, and it just like our pump, but it does it automatically. Literally, it's an artificial pancreas. And I'm thinking, why the hell aren't we doing this to people that are that they're on a downward spiral and they're going to lose their life because their diabetes is out of control. And then the cost of these things, my pump's like $5,000-$6,000. Thank God my insurance covered it. But when my insurance lapsed, I was trying to buy it cash, and the inserts were like $75, and I had to do that every 3 days or week, and plus all the other expenses. And I'm thinking, I bought a projector online for like $36 or something, on Wish. Probably came from China, but the point is this stuff could be so much cheaper. It's just, the way we're set up in government, it's very expensive. So while, we could easily say, oh, Trump is XYZ, well, if he could bring the price down, who cares who he's offending? Because the reason I say that is because I know he's trying to get FDA to fast track something. So before we just make it us against them, we need to say, hey, if just like anything else, you got to give credit where it's due. If they are helping medicines to come out faster, and if they are helping it to be cheaper because of the litigious problem that we have, we need to kind of give them some momentum and say, hey, attaboy here. And then they'll take us seriously when we say, oh, but we have a problem here. It's just, I think because the other thing too is that if all we're doing as diabetics is complaining, then nobody wants to take that phone call or read that email, I'm sure if there's millions coming in, but man, people will love to lend an ear to a nice, calm voice that's a voice of reason. And I think we can all benefit from that, as long as they agree with us. So the last thing is there was a lot of talk about Nextel, and I'm just kind of not Nextel,